If you show up at the wedding, we'll cancel it, my brother said. But the bride had already invited me. It wasn't a threat. He said it like a promise. Like a line he'd rehearsed. I stared at the message on my phone for a long time, long after the screen went dark. And then I stared longer. Because here's the thing. I wasn't planning to go. Not until she asked me to. It came out of nowhere. A Facebook message. Short, simple, and weirdly personal. I know it might be awkward. But I want you there. Lauren. The woman my brother, Dean, was about to marry. The woman I'd only met twice, once at a family barbecue, once when I bumped into her at Trader Joe's and we talked about almond butter for 15 minutes like old friends. We never stayed in touch. Not until 3 weeks ago, when that message came through. I didn't reply right away. Because what do you even say to that? I knew Dean and I had history. Complicated, jagged history. But it was buried. Mostly. We'd spent years pretending we were okay: birthdays, holidays, the occasional forced photo at Mom's house. We played nice. But playing nice didn't stretch far enough to include his wedding. Until now. When I did finally reply, all I said was, "Are you sure?" She responded almost immediately. "You deserve to be there. No matter what he says." That last line stuck with me. So I packed a bag. I flew into Denver the day before the wedding. Rented a cheap car, booked a room in a rundown motel 2 exits from the venue. I wasn't even sure I'd go. Not really. I just needed to be close. In case she meant what she said. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. Not Mom. Not Dad. Certainly not Dean. But when I walked into the rehearsal dinner uninvited, underdressed, and absolutely unprepared, Lauren was the first one to see me. And she smiled. Like she'd been waiting all night. The room fell silent behind me, the kind of hush you only get at funerals and awkward reunions. Dean stood at the end of the long table, jaw clenched, knuckles white around his wine glass. He didn't say anything. Not then. But Lauren crossed the room and hugged me. "Thanks for coming," she whispered. "I needed you here." She let go quickly, but I could feel the tension in her arms, the way her fingers lingered like she wanted to say something more. And that's when I knew this wasn't just about me. Something was wrong. Something was really wrong. And whatever it was, Lauren wasn't telling anyone but me. Dean didn't make a scene. Not then. He just stared at me like I'd stepped out of a grave he thought he buried years ago. I didn't blame him. Our last real conversation had ended in a shouting match behind our father's garage. Words like traitor, selfish, and you're dead to me had been thrown around. That was 6 years ago. And until tonight, we'd kept our promise to stay out of each other's lives. But now I was standing in the middle of his rehearsal dinner, and his bride-to-be had just hugged me like I was family. I sat at the far end of the table, 2 seats down from the groom's uncle and across from a cousin I barely remembered. Lauren never came back to my side, but she kept glancing over quick, nervous looks when Dean wasn't watching. Something was off. She looked tired. Not just wedding-week tired, something's eating me alive tired. Like she hadn't slept in days. Like she was waiting for something to go wrong. Dean eventually stood up to give a toast. He smiled, joked, thanked everyone for traveling. But his eyes kept flicking to me. Like he was reminding himself I was real. Like he still couldn't believe I'd actually come. Then he raised his glass. "And to those who come uninvited," he said, voice perfectly calm, "thanks for reminding us why we cherish boundaries." A few awkward laughs. A few too many eyes on me. But Lauren didn't laugh. She looked at him with something cold in her eyes. Not anger. Not even disappointment. Just distance. After the toast, I slipped outside. The venue had a patio that overlooked a stretch of dark water and wind-bent trees. I leaned against the railing and tried to catch my breath. I hadn't even done anything yet, and it felt like I'd just run a marathon through minefields. The sliding door creaked open behind me. I didn't need to turn. I knew it was her. "Did I make a mistake?" I asked. "No," she said softly. "You did what I asked." She stood beside me, close but not touching. Her voice was quieter now, like she didn't want the wind to overhear. "I know what he told you," she said. "That if you came, he'd cancel everything." I nodded. Wasn't subtle. She sighed. "He means it." I figured. We stood there in silence for a beat. Then I asked the question that had been burning through me since the moment I got her message. "Why did you want me here, Lauren?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Because I found something." She pulled a small folded paper from her clutch and handed it to me. I wasn't supposed to see this. It was in the bottom of one of his old moving boxes. I unfolded it. It was a letter. Handwritten. Signed with my name. But I'd never written it. And it accused her of cheating. Read it carefully, she said. Because someone forged your name. The letter was just long enough to feel real angry, rambling, filled with lines I could imagine saying in a different lifetime, if I were drunk and bitter and trying to start a war. But I wasn't. And I sure as hell didn't write it. It was addressed to Dean. No date. No envelope. Just a folded page, yellowing at the edges like it had been handled too many times. It read, Dean, you're blind. She's lying to you. I've seen it with my own eyes, Lauren and her ex, back together behind your back. You're too proud to listen, but one day this will hit you like a brick. Just remember, I tried to warn you. I tried to be a brother. Tyler. My name. My handwriting almost. Whoever did this knew how I used to form my T's, the way I slanted my D's, the weird way I crossed my 7's like ZS. It was close. Too close. I looked up at Lauren, who was watching me like she'd just handed over a live grenade. Where did you find this? I asked. Bottom of an old suitcase. He said it was one of the boxes from your parents' house. When did he show it to you? 2 months ago, she said. When we had a fight about the wedding guest list. I swallowed. So he showed you a letter that I supposedly wrote accusing you of cheating? She nodded. And then he said that's why you weren't invited. That you'd tried to wreck us once, and he wouldn't give you another shot. I stared at the paper again, this time noticing a faint smudge on the bottom corner. A fingerprint. Do you believe me? I asked quietly. She looked away. I didn't know what to believe. Until I saw you tonight. There it was again, that quiet desperation in her voice. That flicker of doubt. Not about me. About Dean. Why now? I asked. Why bring me into this a day before your wedding? Because I don't think I can do it, she whispered. I think I need a reason not to. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and went pale. It's him, she said. He's looking for me. I handed the letter back, but she pushed it toward me. No. Keep it. I don't want it near me. The door creaked open again behind us. She stiffened. I turned just enough to see Dean step onto the patio. Of course you're out here, he said. You just can't help yourself, can you? I didn't say anything. Neither did she. He walked straight up to me. No yelling. No scene. Just a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. I warned you, Ty, he said. I told you what would happen. You did, I said. But I didn't expect this. I held up the letter. His eyes flicked to it just for a split second, and something twitched in his jaw. Lauren stepped between us. Did you forge that letter, Dean? Silence. Then, let's go inside. He turned and walked back through the door like that was the end of it. But it wasn't. Not even close. Because an hour later, Dean was gone. Vanished. Tucked still in his garment bag. Phone off. And the next morning, when the guests arrived for the wedding, they found Lauren sitting alone at the altar holding a torn piece of that same letter in her hands. The ceremony was scheduled for 10 a.m. By 10:15, guests were murmuring. By 10:30, Dean's mother was pacing, red-faced and sweating through her satin shawl. By 10:45, the officiant quietly asked Lauren if she wanted to reschedule. She shook her head. I'm staying. She sat alone on the wooden bench in front of the floral arch, veil pinned back, bouquet untouched. In her lap, the torn piece of that forged letter, just the closing lines and my name at the bottom, fluttered in the breeze like a discarded truth someone had tried too hard to hide. I stood in the back of the venue, unsure if I belonged or if I just lit a match I couldn't unstrike. At 11:07, the best man got a text from Dean. One line. Tell Lauren I did her a favor. That was the last anyone heard from him. I stayed after most people cleared out. The caterers boxed the untouched hors d'oeuvres, the DJ unplugged his setup without playing a single track. I helped Lauren out of her shoes and into the passenger seat of my rental car. We drove back to her place in silence, the road stretching long and quiet under a cloudless Colorado sky. At her apartment, she sat on the couch, still in her dress, staring at nothing. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't mean for any of this. She didn't look at me. It's okay, she whispered. I think I've known for a while. Known what? That he wanted out, but couldn't do it himself. I sat down across from her. She finally turned toward me. Her eyes were glassy, but steady. You didn't wreck anything, Tyler, she said. You helped me see the part one didn't want to admit. I didn't know what to say to that. She reached into her purse and pulled out the other half of the torn letter. Placed it gently on the coffee table next to mine. We watched the pieces sit side by side, their jagged edges not quite aligned. Like two versions of the same truth, still trying to make sense together. I was going to marry a man who didn't trust me, she said. Who lied to keep his story straight. Who hated his brother more than he loved me. And then she laughed, just once. Dry and hollow. I should be humiliated right now, she said. But honestly? I feel free. That night, I booked a flight home. She hugged me at the curb, her hand resting for a second longer than expected on my arm. Don't disappear again, she said. You're not just the brother he lost. You're the one I found. I didn't know what that meant at the time. Maybe she didn't either. But as I watched her disappear into the terminal, still in her white dress and holding two torn pieces of a fake letter written in my name, I knew one thing for sure. I didn't ruin the wedding. He did. And deep down, I think that was the plan all along.